Well, I went to work 2 months after my son was born, and I was just working and breastfeeding, holding him with one hand and typing and working with the other, no problem. So I went back and restructured everything and came up with this 3-week course, just HTML and CSS in more depth, where we explain everything, and we have exercises together and office hours together and hackathons together.
It's DeAndre here, and this is the Pioneers Show, the show where we talk with innovators, makers, entrepreneurs, basically people who are trailing their own trails and creating their own lives, so that we all can learn how to work on our own lives. If this is your first time here, thank you for downloading and listening, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear this episode. Subscribe and enjoy listening to the pioneers of today. And if you're a repeat listener, welcome back. This is episode 21, and I'm your host, André Dialpkerk. You can find me at It's DeAndre on Twitter, as well as the show at Pioneers Show on Instagram. If you're like me, you've probably heard, seen, or read about the fantastic life of entrepreneurs. Build your own careers, make millions, be free. Now, some of this might be true, but like all things, truth is totally subjective. Elena Kolevska, this week's guest, found that the hard way. As the founder of Omaha Biz, Elena was getting international media attention. She was creating one of the most intriguing new coding schools, but there she realized that was not her world, her calling. Elena is a very intriguing, refreshing, and incredible guest. She has worked all over as a software engineer, and we go over and we talk about her experience, about learning how to code, and about her experience as a startup founder. Before we go on, I would like to thank Isabel from the WOW Dinner for making this episode possible by introducing Elena to me. For those who don't know, the WOW Dinner started as a networking dinner for women in tech who wanted to comfortably connect with their peers in a relaxed atmosphere. Within a year, it developed an energetic global network of women and men, still promoting the advancement of women in technology. They have been doing events in Portugal and in Ireland, and I advise you guys to research them and try to participate in a new event near you. Without taking a lot more, let's jump into the conversation with Elena Kolevska. Elena, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you.
I'm very, very glad that you're here. And just to let this be clear to everyone that's listening right now, this is the first interview that I'm doing with a partnership that I have with WOW Dinner. My friend Isabella made the introduction. So shout out to Isabella and to WOW Dinner. It's a diversity network that helps women succeed and get better connections within the technology industry.
Yeah, thank you, Isabella.
Isabella is great. So with this in mind, I would like to know a little bit more about you. So Elena, could you present yourself?
Yes, of course. I have many different aspects. I don't know which one your audience is going to find most interesting. Let's start with the probably most common, dullest one, but in my opinion, the most challenging role I have in my life. I'm a mom. I usually don't mention that first. I mention it last, but let's just take it, off the table for now. I'm a software engineer. I actually graduated in electronics and telecommunications engineering, but then straight out of university, I continued with programming, because I realized I had probably made a little mistake in choosing the correct university, because I started programming. I started teaching myself programming when I was 16, and I had always loved it and enjoyed it. So straight out of university, I went to programming mostly because I thought that it gave me much bigger liberty of choosing a job, a team, life, and just giving a better quality of life. Because as a programmer, you just need your brain and your computer and you're set. Mm-hmm. As a telecommunications engineer, you always depend on probably a big monopoly, a huge inert company with sometimes difficult structures, hierarchies, not moving fast enough. And then it would take dozens of years until you can get to a more interesting position where you actually get to be creative with your engineering skills, as opposed to following someone else's plans and architecture. So that's why I think that is the biggest reason I went straight into programming. after university.
Very cool. So before we tackle that, your history, I would just like to ask you. So a lot of people say that technology and more specifically programming, but technology as a whole is a very man-dominated industry. Usually men are more attracted to this thing, while women as a general position are not as interested or inclined to do this thing. So why do you think that nowadays, with such, I won't say pressure, but with such stories about the diversity, why do you think it's such importance to have diversity in the workplace?
Well, okay, I think this is a two-part question. Yes, it is still male-dominated industry. Of course, that's a fact. We have, I don't know what's the average, but I think in the Eastern world, 30 or maybe a little bit higher percentage of women. The Western world is less, maybe around 20, 25, depends on which area.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why? So, two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that women are not? Why is it that we don't have enough women? And
Mm-hmm.
second, why is it important to have diversity? Well, for the first question, I have been thinking about that a lot and talking to different people. I think it all starts in the very early years of a child's development. I think cultural conditioning has a lot to do about it, and
Mm-hmm.
we've done a terrible job biasing our children towards or against this role. And I always, tell people the example of my father, who is also an engineer. I remember I don't know how many years, but like very, very, very young with my sister. He was teaching us chess at home, and the two of us were playing against him almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us are engineers now. And sometimes he would let us win. Sometimes, I can remember the rare opportunities where the two of us did win against him. It was such an achievement. And the kick I used to get out of it was so big that I always, continued in the, let's say, logical problem solving field. And in the Eastern Bloc, I think that the division between gender roles, at least at work, so public,
Mm-hmm.
homes, like private home environment is a different thing. But at work, public, in the community, we really didn't have that problem of women in tech. There were great women scientists. My mom has been also, she's a working professional her whole life. She's a lawyer. Now she works in ministries, finances, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
She said she's always been in management roles, leadership roles. She never said that she suffered sexism at work. So sexism in the Eastern cultures, Eastern Europe, most socialist, communist cultures, is not really that big of a problem. Another interesting anecdote is like if you Google Soviet Christmas cards, do you know what you're going to see?
I'm checking it right now.
Rockets going to space, like comparison Christmas cards for kids. In the Western is with Santa, right?
This is
a
so
fantasy.
Cool.
It's a fantasy. The Soviet kids used to have like Christmas cards with rockets going to the moon. So that's how we were maybe brainwashed. We can say that. But the governments of that time were kind of forcing technology and science to people and showing what's the importance of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that women from there were way more stimulated to go into tech or STEM. You can see Indian girls. Indian girls are, a subject to be discovered. Indian female programmers. There are so many of them, and it's now it's considered, a status symbol to go into programming because families know that it pays well, and they know that girls can do it as well as boys.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So I definitely think it is a cultural conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there are some studies that probably, now I don't know the exact numbers or the exact name of the studies or who confirmed that if they were repeated, but there were those studies where give kids a toy, and usually girls would pick up the subject. Mm-hmm. Boys would pick up an object toy. So girls would pick up doll, animal, or like a living thing, mm-hmm. and boys would mostly pick up an object, a mm-hmm. car, a square, cube.
Yeah, that's been proven. That's been proven.
So who knows? Maybe there is something, but maybe there is some general thing, but we're all different in the end. So I don't think that gender is the main differentiator for this. I've always had interest in science, and I always will continue to have. So it is still an individual thing, and pairing that with my family's support, I think it's been great.
One of the things that you mentioned about the Indian girls, one one girl that I interviewed last week, actually, she's a brilliant engineer, and she's Indian, and she told me a lot about 100 different things, which is amazing. That in India, such a conservative country as you have that image usually has a lot of people right now going to technology and trying to revolutionize the world from such a country that usually you don't quite necessarily put into the world of technology, even though nowadays with a lot of people going at least for call centers there. But now we're getting a little bit sidetracked. So first thing that I would like to ask, where are you from?
I'm from Macedonia.
And
ex-Yugoslavia.
Yeah, ex-Yugoslavia. Okay. So clearly you were born in the Soviet Union, correct?
No, we weren't, but we still had socialism as the system. Mm. So not communism, not the Soviet Union, mm-hmm. but Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a little bit more balanced, in the middle between the West and the East.
You already talked a little bit about programming, and after doing some research on you, I've seen that you've not only traveled the whole world, or let's say had jobs in different areas of the world. When we were talking before the interview, you were talking about Brazil. Now I know that you're in Portugal. Great country, by the way. Great country.
Yeah.
But I would like to know, so what was so you were studying in Macedonia, I assume, or did you study outside of your country?
Yes, in Macedonia.
So you were studying in Macedonia. What did you do, or what happened for you to leave Macedonia in the first place? Was it a goal of you to leave that country, or what made that happen?
Well, I left the country as a consequence of my desire to get to know other countries. In 2009, I went on my first Interrail trip. Do you know mm-hmm. Interrail? So for the international and non-European Union listeners, Interrail ticket is, you can get it very cheap as a European young person until 25 years or something like that. You get, for example, for 200 and something euros, you get a train pass for the whole month, more or less, in Europe. And you just hop on a train whenever you want and go to any city in Europe with your backpack and just meet people and enjoy life. So I went on that trip alone, meeting friends on my way, and I had such an amazing time. I fell in love in Barcelona, an amazing city. So on my way back from Barcelona, I said, okay, next year in July, I'm moving to Barcelona.
I love Barcelona.
In the meantime, the financial crisis kind of became
more apparent in Europe.
Yes, especially in Spain. And I started doing capoeira.
Really?
So I said, you know what? Yeah, and I was completely hooked. I think, that's the thing I discovered about myself lately, that I'm a little bit of an obsessive person when it comes to music and, hobbies. So like when I discover new artists, I go and discover everything on the band. I watch all the shows, I know all the albums, I listen to it obsessively for a month.
That's good.
So yeah. Well, maybe.
I'm like that. I remember that the first time that I heard, I think it was Metallica, or started to listen to Metallica. I remember I just had to download the full discography and just listen to it just to figure out, okay, are these guys just the Nothing Else Matters, or do they have more songs? And then, oh yeah, they have it.
Yeah, so yeah, and I became like that with capoeira, completely obsessed, studying music, started to learn Portuguese. I started to learn all the instruments, the drums, the berimbau, yeah, and the pandeiro.
So it's Brazilian capoeira, not the from Angola, right?
Well, they say Capoeira de Angola, but it was invented in Brazil by the slaves.
Yeah, no.
And now one style of capoeira is called Capoeira de Angola, but it's not actually from Angola. It's Brazil.
As well, because I know that there are two styles of capoeira. You have the one with the jenga, the Brazilian, and then you have the one Angola, like in I don't know how you say in English.
On the ground, yeah, exactly. And slower. The rhythms are different, but it's all Brazilian.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and yeah, that was my obsession with capoeira, and especially with drums. I have this thing with drums. I don't know. There is something in me that really vibrates when I hear drums. And I said, I'm going to Brazil. So I told my then boss, okay, in 3 months, May, I'm quitting. I'm going to Brazil. He was like, what? This is Macedonia in 2010, okay? Digital nomadism was still not a word. I didn't know anyone in Macedonia who worked remotely. No one in person, actually. I hadn't met anyone in my life who worked remotely. And I said, okay, I'll go to Brazil. I find a job. So I was searching for different job posts, and I think I found something on Craigslist. I applied for just a regular web developer job in the United States. I got it. Suddenly, I was earning 3 times as much as in Macedonia, working remotely from wherever I wanted. And even with that 3 times as much, I was still earning very little money. It's just that in Macedonia, salaries were very, very low. And I had a very high salary for Macedonian. So yeah, I got that, starting getting my money. And I went to Brazil. I moved to Brazil. And I always say this, it's very convenient to earn money in a first world country, but live somewhere cheaper. It's really nice.
Live in a cheaper country, having a first world salary. It's
internet connection.
Yeah, of course, the internet connection. I think that's why a lot of people also go to places like Indonesia and Thailand, where the internet is crazy fast, crazy cheap. Yeah. Everything is crazy cheap, but as soon as you can get like an American or an English or even a German salary, you can get paid. It almost become an instant millionaire by the first salary. Yeah, exactly. That's why, of course, that lifestyle appeals to young people. First of all, because you have freedom, and I just have this big interest in understanding people and understanding. To me, it's such a nice challenge to understand how someone thinks. And I find real pleasure in that, understanding how some brains work, and then even more understand how cultures work, how communities work. I find that very intriguing, and I take huge pleasure in learning that. So traveling and becoming richer in experience is a big thing for me. One anecdote as well, but I seem to find a lot of people lately that have done martial arts and are programmers. Do you think there's a relationship somewhere there? Because at least I did jiu-jitsu for a lot of years. I know a lot of people that went to my own father. He's a programmer. He's a developer. He's also some kind of other kind of engineers that he's done a lot of things his whole life, but his whole life was a lot of martial arts as well. Do you think there's something there that just maybe entices more people, or what do you think?
I have no idea. I don't think I've ever met someone I really don't know. But you know what? Maybe there is something, because my master, like my master, Capoeira master, always says, super intelligent man, by the way, no formal education, but genius mind. And he says, Capoeira is chess with the body.
Yeah, like jiu-jitsu.
So you have to take like 2 or 3 steps before your opponent lead them. Friend who you're playing with your other person, not against that other person. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe there is something, because, before I started doing Capoeira, and I used to see those MMA fights, I was like, oh my God, this is such a barbaric, stupid thing. How can you guys watch this? How can someone do this? But now I watch sometimes when I go somewhere and there is MMA. I don't have TV, but when I go somewhere and there is MMA on the TV, I actually find it quite interesting. It's interesting to see how people strategize. Now, the goal for that strategizing is not very interesting. Will knock someone down.
I like it. I like
but
it.
It's still interesting.
I remember when I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu back in Lisbon, and I remember that was the first time that I got introduced to the MMA area. And one thing you just said is that usually fighting, be it martial arts or some kind of a more rhythmic dance with strikes like Capoeira is, I think that, like you said, it's a kind of a body chess that you have to do, and it's logical thinking, it's critical thinking, it's critically logical problem solving. So I think that maybe there you can see some kind of connection with the programming world. But it's something that I just started to realize recently, that a lot of people that go into programming usually like martial arts. I know this is anecdotal evidence, but I seem to like it usually. It's a trend that I've been seeing. Probably just 3 people ever, but it's interesting.
I really miss Capoeira, but I have really huge problems with huge pain in my back when I go back to train. Every time I try and go back, hoping this time will be better, it just hurts so much. So I said, man, like, if my body is not enjoying this, maybe I should just start yoga or something. And I did start and tried, but I realized that for me, yoga or surfing, that's absolutely not the sport for me. I need music, I need rhythm, and I need a group to do my. Have
you tried Pilates?
Physical activity.
Usually Pilates.
Yeah, I did. No, too slow for me, and really not that physically intense. So, but there is an Afro dance group starting in Ericeira soon with live drummers.
Ooh.
I just can't wait. I was so happy when I went to a workshop. I thought it was a one-time thing here in Ericeira. And the girl said that actually they moved here, they live here, and they're planning to start a group. I think my reaction, my overly enthusiastic reaction, completely scared the shit out of that girl. But I'm so happy that is going to happen. Yeah.
But going back to the interview.
Yes.
So you are the founder, let's call it that, the founder and CEO of Omaha, correct?
Yes.
But according to your LinkedIn or my own research, you're also a software engineer for a company called VAR42 and the CTO of Invisible City, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can we start from VAR42 and go up until Omaha, because that's where I would like to focus the more energy, but I would like to know what you do in those areas.
Yeah, so VAR42 is a collective of engineers. We work together, like establishing processes, and we share our knowledge. So, for example, when I have an engineering problem or a decision to make, we think that it's better to put our collective knowledge together and, have different point of views and different experiences. Of course, each and every one of us has had different problems in the past from which we've learned from. So bringing all that knowledge to one problem is many times better than having just one pair of eyes and one brain. So that's what we do usually. We don't have clients, like we don't have at the moment, we don't have any projects in there, and people from the collective, whoever is free, they can participate in any project that comes. For now, I just participated like briefly in one project. It was very nice experience working with amazing people. We're all friends. But yeah, that was a brief thing because I was starting. I was doing other things, and then Invisible City. It's an amazing project. Currently, we are a little bit stagnant because we had big changes. It was a European Union funded nonprofit. Meant to be the European Union's cultural data platform for cultural events, funded by institutes like Gulbenkian, funded by the Austrian government, Estonian. I think the Portuguese government even wanted to fund. I don't remember. There were a few countries that had already funded this project. The Goethe Institute. So, funded from outside sources. Again, nonprofit. And we have an app for cultural events. It used to work. It used to be coupled with Facebook's API, but after that scandal in March,
Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytica. That API got closed. They don't expose even public data anymore. So we changed strategy, and we are now currently registering as an independent nonprofit, and going with another. Not completely different, but mostly small artist-focused strategy. So it's going to be very interesting. I don't think I should be revealing much.
Okay, no problem. Then we don't need to talk a lot more about that.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. I'm working with amazing developers, amazing CEO. Our CEO is Ksenia Shrafulina, a Russian girl. She's a kick-ass boss lady. I love working with her. And to me, I just think it's so cool that we have a female CEO and CTO. So,
okay, one question that I have for you. I don't want to go a lot into depth about what it's the situation about it now specifically, but for people who, first of all, how do you structure a nonprofit that's going to be funded by the EU? Was that something that was meant to be from the get-go, or was that something that was the EU specifically that it tried to get at? How was that the creation of that idea?
I'm not sure, and actually I'm going to talk about it, but I prefer staying out of those bureaucracy things. I don't want to know. I simply never even thought about asking, but it was European Union National Institutes of Culture. So it's a separate organization. It's not directly funded by European Union, but some European Union funds. I really don't know. I really don't know, but you can, invite Ksenia. I think she would be also she would make an amazing guest on your podcast too, and she can explain all about those things.
Introduction.
Yes, for sure.
And now focusing a lot more on Omaha.
Yes.
What's the 2-sentence pitch of what is Omaha?
Oh my God, I forgot it. I came unprepared. Okay, Omaha was maybe, I don't know. I don't want to give a business pitch. I can give a pitch about what was my intention with it. So it got born as I'm a curious person and I like challenges. So I was thinking, you know what? I've spent over 10 years of my life architecting software. I would like to try and architect a business. Let's see how that goes. So I thought a little bit about it. I mean, for a long time I had tried, I always thought it's going to probably be some software as a service product. I tried a few. I created one platform. And then I realized it's freaking evil to do that, because it would be it would have enabled big companies to spam people with SMS and calls. So I said no, I'm shutting this down. I don't want
probably
to do this.
Financially speaking, that would be a great idea though.
Yeah, I know, but that's not me. I don't want to have that karma on me. And the product is there now. I open sourced it. I put the backend on my GitHub.
Well, what's the name of the company or the project?
It's not, I think Pulse Pipe, I gave it a I didn't have branding. Nothing. It was just, first I just focused on the technical product. using the Twilio API.
Yeah, I assume when you said text messaging, I assumed you would be using Twilio.
Yeah, Twilio, Plivo is cheaper, but they are not as reliable as Twilio. And believe me, I do know what I'm saying, because that call center in a browser I built with a Californian company, we were completely 100% reliant on Plivo for a while to deliver. Anyway, that's a completely different subject. But yeah, that product, and I pitched it at some, business meetings here in Ericeira in the business incubator we have. And people were saying, you should really go for it. This has potential. And I just realized, man, this is absolutely not me. I don't want to do this. It's just, no. So I just put it out there now on my GitHub, and but not without the front end, just the back end. Because code wise, it was interesting for me. It was my first completely test-driven project that I had done. Mm-hmm. Before that, I had just done, just some tests here and there. But this was, it's a nice exercise for myself too.
One question about that specifically. So I'm now, like I told you in the beginning of the conversation, I'm now learning how to code. And one of the things that a lot of people, I'm sure, ask is what programming language I need to speak or to understand, and what kind of knowledge do I need to have. And one of the things that you said when you had the first job in the US, when you started working remotely, you got hired as a web developer, right? Yes. When we say web development, are we talking about applications, or are we talking about like front-end, back-end websites?
To me, a web developer develops dynamic websites. So you have not very complicated website with some business logic to it, but nothing that would, let's say, have users register and log in and have some backend capabilities. So mostly dynamic websites, let's say building a blog or showing dynamic content on your website. And of course, building the website itself, the front end. So to me, that's what a web developer is, working mostly with, presentational websites. A programmer, the borders here are very thin. They're not really, exact. And there is a lot of overlap between categories. But the way I see it, a backend developer is someone who, in my opinion, is someone who works mostly with the server-side logic, let's say the engine of the whole thing. Most often exposes just an API to which the front end connects, but sometimes even work in the same code base and just renders HTML also. But sometimes the front end developer does that work well. But yeah, database architecture, system design,
that's mostly backend, correct?
Best practices. Yeah. That is backend. The front-end developers don't need to know anything about the database unless we start talking about Firebase and stuff like that in the modern developers, the modern development days. But usually, traditionally, backend developers take care of database and database design.
So when we're talking about just in terms of languages, when you're talking about front end, we're talking about HTML, CSS, JavaScript?
Yes.
That's it? Or are we talking about, probably, I know there are tons of libraries and frameworks for JavaScript, but outside of that, yes. Is there any other front end language?
No, that's it.
So every other, from Ruby to Python to PHP, Java, C#, C++, C, blah, 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 all those things are backend?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Damn.
The browser doesn't understand anything except HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. As of now, I mean, there are some tries, like some new standards or something. Of course, there are variants of JavaScript, but eventually everything gets compiled to JavaScript. TypeScript, ECMA, I don't know what, 2015, but everything gets transpiled actually to JavaScript.
So for someone who doesn't, okay, let's talk about, in this case for me, for example, but I know that Omaha will talk a little bit more in depth in that, but imagine someone who doesn't come from a technical background such as me, loves technology, and wants to be a little bit more in depth or in control of his own career, his or her career, of course, what do you think he or she should do? Do you think that the going and learning coding is a very good idea or not?
If that's someone who's really interested in technology and really wants to understand how things work, I mean, it always comes up to the person. But to me, yes, programming is one profession where you definitely can be more in charge of your career, because there is a lot of job opportunity. It's relatively new profession, and there is still a big lack of developers, of good developers at least. The payment is very decent. The job market, I mean, there is on the rise. Mm-hmm. We continue seeing a growth in job opportunities, programmer job opportunities. So yeah, that is something that interests you or the person. I mean, whoever it is, that is someone that is of interest of the person. I would definitely recommend to try it at least and see if you like it. I mean, I have this if you never try, you never know. So to me, this is something very important. But something that we need to take into consideration is that it's not easy. It is hard. It is a lot of work. Now, like back in the days, it used to be, okay, you learn one language and you're good to go. And now you have to learn that language in depth, and you have to learn a framework around it, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. And then you have to learn a million other tools so you can work properly as a professional software developer. I mean, it's not just the programming language anymore. You need to learn Git. You need to learn like Gulp or Grunt. Then you need to learn that's for asset management and like automating some build tasks. Then you need to learn continuous development, continuous integration. You need to learn a little bit about Docker. You need to learn a little bit about server management. At least if you work in a small startup, you'll be the programmer and the DevOps person. So you definitely need to learn Linux and feel completely comfortable setting up a naked server from zero to a working app online. DNS, you have to learn working in a team. You have to learn how to communicate properly. You have to learn all the tech tools to all the bon ton, like the ethics of working in remote team, like sharing your time zone or converting, or I don't know, using the UTC time zone or something. It is a hell of a lot of things you need to learn.
But are these things that you need to learn, some things that you can learn at the same time? Are they, so for example, can you be learning Git, like you said, at the same time that you learn a little bit more about DevOps and continuous integration, or you have to do one thing at a time?
No, you have to actually. Well, I can say with 8 or 90% of certainty that you will most probably have to learn it while you are learning the technology, because otherwise, like, how can you won't be able to put your website on. Of course, you can just do things locally, but then eventually you will have to put that thing online. And how are you going to do it? You have to learn how to SSH into a server, how to install Nginx, how to set up, that website, how to connect DNS. Eventually, you have to learn everything. Mm-hmm. And how are you going to share your work with another developer, or how are you going to even deploy if you don't have Git set up? So, of course, there are ways for everything. Good old FTP still works. I mean, we've used it for years and it worked, but it's just not the optimal way. It's
and
no one.
And okay, so first, let's assume that someone that's listening to us, you can probably be in one of three sides. A, they didn't understand a single thing that both you and me just said. B, they understood most of the things and are scared out of their lives and they don't want to think about programming ever again. Or 3, they are very interested in knowing a little bit more about that. So assuming that we don't tackle the first group that doesn't understand a single thing that we just said, how can you tell to someone who's very scared, or for example, he's learning, let's take me an example, HTML, CSS eventually. And I'm learning that right now. Now that I thought that I was going to learn about 4 different programming languages, you throw like 7 more concepts onto my face. So how can you get, or imagine that you're teaching someone and you tell them, so this is HTML, this is the break, this is, and out of the blue you say, now you need to learn this. How do you stop someone?
But you don't say that. You don't say that, not until they think they know it. When they think, oh yeah, now I got it, now I know all of this, then you give them a little bit more. And then when they get that, then you give them a little bit more. And it has to be, I mean, when you're teaching, people have to feel that sense of gratification. And that's why HTML is amazing for starters, for people to start getting into coding a little bit, because they write one line of code, they see a thing on the screen. Oh my God, this is a button, this is a link, like I see on the web pages every day when I Google things, for example, and they feel very happy and they get inspired to learn more and more and more and more and more. So when you give people, a small project, and they learn that, and then you add one more thing in that project, and that adds one cool feature to that, they're like, oh, cool, teach us more, because it's cool. Mm-hmm. They like it, and they when you give them small bits, it's easier to learn. And once they get to work on a project, and then they make a change, or they need to exchange code with a colleague, let's say HTML and CSS, they're going to start to feel the pains of versioning and version control. And then you say, boom, Git, here it is. This is how it works. These are the concepts. Learn this. You'll be much better off. Git. Okay, to us, I was talking to also a developer friend the other day, and I said, come on, Git is not a beast with 3 hats. He said, and he's a very good developer. He said, are you crazy? Git is a beast with 3 hats. It's a freaking monster to learn. And there are still developers who need to Google things and who get in that famous, notorious Git hell. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to merging, and it is a deep profession with problems that can go deep. But if you go step by step and you rely on your community and best case scenario, have a mentor to help you learn, or study with a group, then it gets much easier. And there are so many different problems to solve. For so many problems, you don't need to know that all of these technologies even exist. Like if you want to put a basic plain static website online, you don't need to know, like you can survive. You can do it without knowing Git. You can do it, FTP. That's it. And then you're just careful and you name your folders version 1, last version, final version, really final version,
My girlfriend's a designer and she has a lot of those things like part 1, part 2, part 2 real, part 2 for reals now, part 3, part 4.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, but you can survive. You can do it, and you can have a working website, for example, without having to SSH in a server, without knowing what a terminal is, without knowing what Git is. It is possible. So that's why, there are so many things to learn if you need them. If you don't need them, you need to know, like, what are your other options. So there are different problems to solve too. So there is work for everyone, I think.
Okay, and going back to Omaha.
Yes.
You don't want to give a business pitch, but specifically, what is it?
Okay, so Omaha is a programming school meant to be really friendly and not intimidating, and with a special focus on inspiring women to join tech. And I know that the women in tech topic can be a little bit, it's a delicate subject to many people, but having my background and my experience in this world, I say inspire women into tech. I don't think that publicly shaming men who have been raised to be like that is our solution. I really don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we need to work with the future generation and inspire more women in tech, and that can be a real solution actually to the problem. Everything else is just, people are, instead of really changing, many of them will just, be scared to say anything. So, but anyway, yeah, that's a delicate subject. Back to Omaha, inspiring women to believe in themselves and to realize they can actually code, and that it's super fun, and that it can give them, by having this skill, highly employable skill and well paid, you get financial freedom and independence.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as a single mom, that is a particularly important subject, because I've seen women struggling, single moms struggling after splitting, because now suddenly they don't know how to support their family, their children. And I don't want to see that so much. I know that we can do so much better. And this is a thing, programming is something that you can do from your own home. I also, always say this to people. Well, I went to work 2 months after my son was born. And I was just working and breastfeeding, holding him with one hand and typing and working with the other, no problem. Well, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's been very, very difficult. When he was a baby, okay, they just sleep and shit and that's it, and eat. That's it, 3 things. But once they start walking, oh my God, that's really, that becomes, and they want your attention. So it's very difficult then to be a stay-at-home working mom, work from home, having your kid around. And now I find that impossible. I only do it when I really don't have any other choice.
Okay.
But having that possibility of having a baby and not having to quit your job because of it, and having your own money, being independent, and being able to make a decision of leaving a situation that you don't like and just can't stand anymore, being that family situation or maybe a company situation where you have bullying at work, or your boss is terrible, or you just stagnant in a team where you can't learn anymore, you can't go up anymore. So I think it gives people a lot of possibilities. You can choose your own team, you can get better money, you can work from wherever you want. And I just think it's a really nice profession.
And
that was the intention of Omaha.
And is Omaha? I don't remember if you said this, but is Omaha? You said part-time, right?
Yes. So first I had this idea of making a normal programming bootcamp on site here in Ericeira, but with a big focus on on distributed teams and working remotely, remote working culture and communication and 360 feedback. So all this, next stage organization practices. But then we got only 2 confirmed signups plus 2 almost confirmed. So I said, okay, financially this would maybe even make sense, but that's not the way I want to do it. I want to reach more people. And if we have such a low number of candidates, that means something. So let's try and change our methods. And then I canceled that bootcamp and went back to the drawing board, started thinking, and I said, okay, if I really want to help women, how am I going to actually help them if I'm taking them 3 months away from their families? What mother is going to leave her child for 3 months? And even we said, okay, we do provide childcare included, so people could have come with their children, but it's not simple like that. What about the fathers who are going to stay away from their kids for 3 months? How about the grandparents? How about the family, the kid itself that will have to change environments? And it's really not that simple. So I said, okay, let's try and see how we can make this. And also the second point, also, if we promote remote work so much, why not make the course remote?
So it's online.
Yes. So I went back and restructured everything and came up with this the 3-week course, just HTML and CSS in more depth, where we explain everything, and we have exercises together and office hours together and hackathons together. So every Saturday we had hackathons where people worked in groups in pair programming sessions using tools for pair programming and different collaboration tools. And it was amazing. So we had a few groups. It started going very well. Then we did a partnership with womenintech.org, a global women in tech organization who's doing the Women in Tech Awards now in Lisbon. That was a great collaboration. We did a program for 50 women from around the world, and we made sure we picked women from all the continents. Mm-hmm. We got over, I don't remember the numbers anymore. Was it over 200 or over 300 candidates? I don't remember anymore, but there were so many women interested, and as part of the sign-up form, when they had put a question like, "Tell us a little bit about your story. Why do you want to join this course?" And reading those stories was just so some inspirational, inspiring, but also sometimes frustrating, because I saw so many times people say, I'm stuck in this job. People tell me women are not meant to code. I want to prove my colleagues wrong. I'm a, tester, and the developers think so. They don't respect us. Or I'm a mom and I'm about to have a kid. I don't know what to do. I think that maybe having a job like this, being able to work from home, will improve my life and the life of my kid. And so those stories inspired me even more to invest a little bit in that program. So for 50 women, we also got I forgot the number, I think 10 or 12 volunteers. Volunteer developers from all around the world. Thank you, Twitter, and thank you, my friends on Twitter, for sharing that post. And helping me find the volunteers. It was amazing. So we had, every volunteer had a group of 3 people working with them. So they had office hours, they were their mentors, and some really nice relationships formed in there. The girls, the women were impressed with themselves first. They felt empowered that they can do things now. Just this morning I got a message from one of the students saying that she's now studying Python, and also continued in her exploration. Now, after knowing HTML, she's very much interested in data visualization, and she's continuing that track, and most probably switching to some kind of data analysis job.
Interesting.
So even though she started just as HTML, CSS, they're not even programming languages, they're markup and styling language. She still got inspired. Maybe that mindset of thinking a little bit how the computer sees things, it empowered her to get going, to start, on the track towards becoming, a programmer. So that was how Omaha. That is how Omaha works. But now, after this big group of 50 women, I was working on, preparing the system. I built a system from scratch, like the student platform. I built that from scratch, prepared it for the new course that I was about to launch. I had set a date, but I hadn't launched it. And as I was building it, I realized something. I was so freaking exhausted. I never, ever stopped anymore. I didn't have free time ever. When I stopped for a while, I felt that I'm missing, and everyone else was doing things like, everyone else being like the entrepreneurship world. We were doing things and I was missing out and not following with everything. I felt like I'm behind on everything because I had to be the teacher. I had to be the course developer. I had to be the CEO. I had to manage the interns. I had to help the volunteer instructors. I had to do sales. I had to be the programmer for the student platform. I had to do social media, which was the worst for me. And I said, man, I don't have time for me and my son anymore. My son now only sees me stressed and worried. And so I had high risk levels, not that big of a paycheck, and no free time at all. And I said, man, I miss programming. And I realized, Elena, you're a fucking engineer. You can continue doing with Omaha, but please, you are postponing the announcing of the new course because you're dreading it. Actually, you don't want to continue doing it. You are just too stressed out and too overworked for that. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going to stress more about this. I'm going to open source everything. Omaha is going to continue. I'm still thinking of developing some new courses together with Lisbon Data Science Academy. They're also a nonprofit, so they need a Python course as a preparation for the Data Science Academy. So they asked me to do that, and we are most probably going to be doing that together. And then the community is there. Now we have already people and people who are really interested in continuing their development. The branding is there. The story is there. The mission is there. So all of this is going to continue, but I realized I don't want to depend on this for money. Mm-hmm. I don't want to make this my main job. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to be a CEO. That is just too much for me. My way of thinking is more like linear. I have one job to do, I do it, and I follow it step by step. With entrepreneurship, it's absolutely not like that. You have to think in all possible ways at all times. So yeah, I got a job as a lead developer in a startup, now transitioning towards CTO very soon, over the next month or end of November at most. We should be finishing the transition, and I'm happier than ever. Now I work much less. Now on average, my time tracking says that in the past 2 months I've been working on average 5 to 5.5 hours per day. So I work much less. My stress levels are way low, actually inexistent now. I'm not stressed at all. I have much more money, and I feel amazing, intellectually challenged because I am solving hard engineering problems again. So yeah, I couldn't be happier. And I think for me it was very important to be able to recognize this is not for me. Mm-hmm. It's such a big buzz, entrepreneurship and startups and everything, and I somehow got caught on that buzz and jumped on that train, maybe just by habit, because okay, everyone else is doing it, maybe I should do it too. Mm-hmm. But I'm proud of myself for recognizing I don't enjoy it. I'm not enjoying this, even though it started going really well. It started getting recognition. It started bringing money. But I said, I'm not enjoying this, actually. And being brave enough to say, yeah, I quit.
And I think that's a very, very interesting point. You're clearly not in a position, as good a project it was, for at least for you specifically, you went to a position that you didn't feel comfortable maintaining the project. And I think it requires a lot of self-awareness for someone to say, well, as much as I've been doing this is not who I am. Let's just take a step to another side and maybe go back to the course that at one point you were on, and you decided to literally venture off into something else, but now you decided to go back and do this. And let me say that requires not only a lot of guts, but a lot of self-awareness. And self-awareness is a skill that a lot of people are missing nowadays, I believe.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, because, what are people going to say? Did she quit because she wasn't making money? But it's not like that. Of course, I was worried about that. What are people going to think? But the first time that the first bootcamp failed, I was like, okay, oh my God, I failed. No, I didn't fail. I just realized on time, before going deep and going into depth, that this is not what the market wants. And we pivoted. So it was an amazing learning experience. But in the beginning, it was difficult. You take it personally. Am I not good enough? You're starting. You don't have the team that other code bootcamps have. They've been there on the market for years. They have developers. They have like huge teams. They have a lot of money and a lot of experience too. They have tested curriculums. So why would someone choose my bootcamp over theirs? Well, money, yeah, of course. So it should be way cheaper, but then there's limit to everything, right? So that first fail was a fail, but it took me a while to not take it as a failure. And now, I've adopted this thing as there are no errors. I don't see that as a failure. I see that as a learning opportunity. So now, to me, everything is learning, and I just don't care. But it was also good when I said, okay, now I'm getting a new job. I'm not launching that next Omaha course. It was good because, it happened right after they published my name in Forbes list of 100 female entrepreneurs in Europe to follow. And it was like this big thing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it sounds much fancier than it really is. Yeah, because it's Forbes and stuff. So they asked this lady who's really into women in tech. She has some organization for women in tech, global, very well recognized, to put up a list of 100 women in tech. She came to a Facebook group, Tech Ladies, and she asked, hey, some female founders that female entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs can nominate someone. I nominated myself. I nominated Ksenia Ashrafulina, the CEO of Invisible City, and another girl who's working with blockchain, Italian girl.
Introduction is very valuable as well there. If you know it, I love blockchain people.
Yes, absolutely. All three of us ended up on the list, and there were so many nominations, but somehow all three of us ended up on the list. I had done that weeks ago, and I had completely forgotten about it. Completely.
Is that a recent thing?
And that's a few months ago. I don't remember. Yeah, probably.
Congratulations, really.
Thank you. So, yeah, when I say, oh, hey, look, I got published on my Facebook, on LinkedIn, people have made a huge deal out of it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, so maybe this is more than I was, it's more valuable than I had given it. And you know how something is, but then people start saying, oh, it's important. And then you start saying, oh, yeah.
Of course.
And, but yeah, so when you have that kind of recognition, it's kind of easier to say, no, I'm not quitting. I just choose to stop doing Omaha. But also, I realized one very important thing with that Forbes post. I actually don't enjoy media attention. I really don't. I think it puts some pressure and anxiety on me to then always be perfect and then ever again be able to do something wrong. I know that's absolutely not it, but it is how I feel. And I'm not in the slightest an introvert person, but I don't want to be the center of, I don't enjoy being the center of attention. I just don't. I like to talk to people, one-on-one, but then me being in the center and other people looking, it's a little bit, I really don't enjoy it. And then with Omaha, I chose to, Omaha branding was tightly coupled with my branding, with my name. And I don't know if I enjoyed that.
Well, thank you. Much. Thank you very much for giving some time here for some media attention on the Pioneers Show, though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is just a conversation. It's just the two of us now. There are not many people talking.
Well, thank you either way. So I would like to go now for some lightning round. It's really simple. I'll ask you a couple of questions and you have less than 1 minute to answer. Is that okay?
Yes.
Tell me 1 to 3 books that have impacted you the most.
1 to 3 books that have impacted me the most. But like in life?
Your choice.
I mostly read science fiction books. I don't read those, business books like, I listen to Blinkist, so things like that, but it doesn't stick that much to me. I mostly read science fiction books.
Give them. Top 3.
But that's not impact really. Well, I don't know. The book that I have laughed most and one of the most, genius is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Of course, every geek's book. I've read the Game of Thrones books.
It's 42, right?
Twice.
The meaning of life is 42.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know the coding school 42 or 42 school, something like that? I think I had read that somewhere. So School 42, it's a school, a coding school or an engineering school created by a French millionaire. He made a lot of money in the early 90s. He's a billionaire in France. And he created a coding school called 42. And that was a wink at the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many. They're everywhere now. Once you know the number, and then it's just everywhere. So many coding examples have it. Every geek example has it. Like you see it everywhere. Okay, tell me something you've changed your opinion in the last 6 months. Many things. That entrepreneurship is fun, and that you become more free if you have your own business. Do you live by any kind of life motto, or do you have any quote that you like to live by? A few. There are no errors. There are just learning opportunities. One of them. Everything is it's as it is supposed to be. If it's not the end yet. Everything is as it is supposed to be. It is supposed to be in the end. If it's not the end yet. Oh, I like it. Yeah, it was John Lennon or something. I learned that quote from my Capoeira master, actually. Oh, nice. He always says that. And then I saw it somewhere and I thought it was someone else. Okay. If I gave you 6 months to prepare for a TEDx talk, but it couldn't be about programming or any kind of business-related opportunities or your life as an entrepreneur, what would it be about? Communication in teams, empathy in tech teams, maybe, or empathy in communication. Okay, interesting. Or in software design. And last question. It can be tech. Last question before we go into the final parts. What would you say to your college self if you had the opportunity to say it today? Kids are so much work. It is so much work. Think well before having them, and at least be prepared. Be more prepared. Last question really now is, what's the one thing that you do outside of work that you feel that impacts your life the most? I go for walks on the beach, and I go for walks in nature very often, every time I can. And I chose to move in a small town, like a fisherman village place, having a great community around. And together with a few of my friends, we started to build up intentionally a community, and now we have a great number of people, amazing brains attracted to this place, and I think we live in paradise. We have peace of mind. We have great friends who we can rely on. We have structured learnings, amazing nature close by.
And then, just the thing just one thing that actually I don't have to do completely changes my life. I don't have to drive in a big city. I drive in a small villa, and you only realize the value of that once you go out of the big city, because you don't realize the stress you have when you drive back home after work or you go anywhere. You only realize that if you go out of the city, stay in the villa for a while, and then you go back to the city and have to drive there again. You see how stressful that freaking thing is. So yeah, living in a small city with a tight-knit community for me is a life changer, and I would never give up on that just to be, able to work in a better team or work or make much more money.
One of the things that you just mentioned, but I felt a lot in Paris and in Lisbon that going into the city was quite stressful, but here in Berlin, specifically here in Berlin, because the public transportation system is so good, never stressed going anywhere. I know that at most it will take me 45 minutes, but usually it's between 15 to 20. I'm always good.
Yeah, that's really, really amazing, actually. Yeah, being able to rely on the public transportation network is really amazing. But also with the kid, and when you have to do groceries and when you take care of family and taking him to school and if it's 10 minutes walking distance for you, you wouldn't go and take the metro. But if it's 10 minutes walking distance with our 4-year-old, oh my God, look at this flower. Oh, look at this cat. Why, kitty. It's half an hour.
Well, I don't think...
yeah, it's a different reality, man.
I don't know of a better place to end this conversation. So, Elena, where can people find more about you and get in touch with you?
Through my website, www.elenakolevska.com, or blog or Twitter, Elena_Kolevska, LinkedIn, whatever. It's just Google.
Okay.
Elena without an H.
Elena without an H and Kolevska. Don't worry, everyone. Yes. Every link will be on the show notes, so don't worry about trying to write this right now. Elena, it was a great pleasure having you here on the Pioneers Show, and I can't wait to know more about Invisible Cities. I would love to get an introduction, and I can't wait to hear more about the startup that you're working at. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for plugging into this episode. I truly, truly hope you loved this conversation as much as I did. Elena was really inspiring, and I did tremendously enjoy talking with her about her experience. Any other information that you might have missed will probably be linked up in the show notes. If you enjoyed this conversation, consider subscribing to make sure that this podcast grows. We can get to more people and help everyone be the pioneers of their lives and careers. If there's any feedback that you might have for me, reach out on social media. A big thank you to Elena for her time and Isabel for arranging this conversation. And to Thibaut Frondlin, aka DJ Rodia, for the music of the Pioneers Show. So talk to you on the next episode. Till then, bye-bye.